Hey guys, welcome back to the KJ Methods YouTube channel, where we are dedicated to helping 1,000 agents pass their real estate exam before the end of 2025. I'm getting an opportunity again today to be outside in this joyous weather, and so I'm taking advantage of it. If you've been here before, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you've never been here before, my name is KJ, also known as the KJ Method. I started this program about 3 years ago. I am a real estate attorney and also real estate pre-licensed instructor, and my only goal here is to help you pass. We've been doing this series of tests. We are on contracts and we are doing contracts test review number 4 today. We only do a small amount of questions on each test review because I want to make sure that you are understanding the material, not just regurgitating answers. So it takes us a little longer to go through a smaller number of questions. So that's why I have you continually coming back. All right, well, without further ado, let's get started. Question 31, we're at 31 because we've done 3 others. If you haven't done those, please go back and watch 1 through 3. Number 31, one party to a contract has the right to change his mind and not perform as agreed. This right can be a condition of the contract itself, can be created by statute, may require the payment of monetary damages, or could be any of the above. So what do you think on this one, guys? Well, think about it. You are in contract. And how do you get out of the contract? Well, you can actually get out of the contract any of these ways, right? So the contract itself may say in the contract, hey, you can get out of it by doing this, this, and this. Secondarily, by statute, there are certain contracts that maybe it says 3 days. You have a 3-day right to get out of it, and that is a statute in your particular state. The third way is that you may require monetary damages. It's like you can get out, but you're going to have to pay to get out. So any of the 3 ways would be a way for you to get out of the contract. So the correct answer there is D. Number 32, a buyer makes an offer of $96,000, providing the seller provides a general warranty deed at closing. The seller agrees to the $96,000, but will only provide a special warranty deed at closing. Has a contract been made? Well, let's look at the answers. Yes, the offer of $96,000 was accepted. B, yes, the buyer made a good offer at full asking price. C, no, because there was no mutual assent. And D, no, because there was no consideration. So what do you think? These parties agreed to $96,000. Both of them agreed to that. But with respect to the deed, one is saying general warranty, one is saying special warranty. As you know, one of the elements to a contract is that the parties have to be agreeing to the same thing. We call it a meeting of the minds, also known as mutual assent. But because they don't have a meeting of the minds here, the answer here is going to be no. There was no contract because there was no mutual assent, which is one of the elements of contract. Okay, number 33. Which of the following is essential for a contract for the sale of real property to be held up by a court or upheld by a court? Anytime I think of upheld by a court, I think of enforceability. Do you think about that? You should be thinking about enforceability. So can you take it to court? A, written form. B, earnest money deposit. C, removal of all liens and encumbrances. D, all of the above. So when we think about taking something to court, I think about enforceability. And what is the words that should always pop into your mind with enforceability? It should be those terms: statute of frauds, statute of frauds. And what does statute of frauds go to? It goes to which contracts have to be in writing. And so look, A, it's right there in written form. If it's not in written form, it's going to be difficult, not impossible, to be upheld by a court. You don't need earnest money deposit, and you don't need to have the removal of all liens and encumbrances. We have many, many contracts that have liens and encumbrances still on them. 34, statute of frauds again, which is not highly unlikely because this test, the national test, tests statute of frauds a number of times. So which of the following is subject to the statute of frauds? Again, statute of frauds says what? Which contracts have to be in writing in order to be enforceable. So let's look. 6-month lease for an apartment. A tenancy at will is B. C is a 2-year lease for real property. And D, month-to-month rental. So which one do you think the statute of frauds is going to impact? Well, one of the things that the statute of frauds says is that any contract that cannot be completed within 1 year has to be in writing. Oh, so we say leases over a year have to be in writing. Let's look for that one. It's right there, C. 2-year lease for real property must be in writing. Don't forget the statute of frauds. There are multiple types of contracts that it says must be in writing, but it doesn't say all contracts have to be in writing. 35. A broker finds a buyer who is willing to enter into an option on a $200,000 property for 90 days. The potential buyer pays $1,000 for the option right, which is acceptable to the property owner. Which of the following is true? All right, so we have options, and we're basically saying, when is this commission going to be earned on this option? So it says A, the sales commission is earned only if the sale is closed. B, the sales commission is earned only if the option is exercised. C, the $1,000 must be credited to the sales price. And D, the commission is earned upon mutual signing of the option agreement. So what is it that we know about options, and what is it that we know about commissions? Well, we essentially say commissions are earned when we have a ready, willing, and able buyer. And when that broker brings that ready, willing, and able buyer ready to meet the seller's terms, then that commission is earned at that moment. In other words, guys, we are never going to pick only if the sale is closed, because sales do not have to close in order for a commission to be earned. It is earned at the point of ready, willing, and able. Now, in an option, when is the person ready? Well, in an option, you know that you do not have to actually buy the property. You could buy it if you want. You don't have to buy it if you don't want. But when is it that you're ready? You're ready when you exercise that option, when you say, yes, I want to buy it. And so that means the commission is earned right at that same point. So B is the answer on 35. Number 36. A seller has rejected offers of $152,000 and $151,000. Another offer is presented from a cooperating broker who is representing a buyer. This offer is $150,000. Which action by the listing broker is most appropriate? So which action by the listing broker is most appropriate? A, present the offer. B, refuse to present the offer because it's a waste of time. C, present the offer and tell the seller that he could attempt to negotiate a higher price. Or D, increase the offer price from the buyer. Now, you should immediately know that D is a no-no. When you get an offer, you present the offer exactly as it's given to you. So let's get rid of D. Also, in most states, check your state law, but in most states, B is also going to be wrong. We present all offers. Here we say all offers all the time. We present all offers. So we're left with A and with C. Present the offer, or present the offer and tell the seller that he can attempt to negotiate a higher price. Which one is it? Well, I taught you in another video that when you have two answers that look the same, but one answer gives you more information, and the information that it gives you is correct, that is always going to be the correct answer. So in this case, it is going to be C, because we're going to present that offer and we're going to say to the seller, hey, don't worry. Why don't we just try to negotiate a higher price? All right, 37, an implied contract would arise from A, spoken words of the parties, B, written words of the parties, C, actions of the parties, or D, written or spoken words of the parties. Which one do you think it is? An implied contract. All right, we know we have something called an express contract and implied contract. They are actually flip sides of each other, guys, okay? Express means what? It means we know that you meant to enter into a contract because you either said it or you wrote it down. It was intentional. But implied, it's like we don't know that you meant to enter into a contract. We can't tell if you said it or if you wrote it down. So we have to look at your actions. We have to look at you and go, well, you guys look like you're acting like you were in a contract. So in other words, guys, if we know that the people meant to enter into a contract and they did it in writing and we can tell they intended it, then that's express. And we would never get to the question of implied. But here, since we have to be at implied, we're going to say it's C, because we got to look at your actions to see if you intended to enter into a contract. All right, number 38. A buyer and seller entered into a purchase and sale agreement on a property. At the time of the parties signing the contract, the A, seller retained legal title and the buyer had an equitable interest in the property. B, seller had equitable title and the buyer had legal title. C, title remained with the seller and the buyer received equitable title. And then D, the buyer and seller held joint legal title until closing. Well, I hope you know that when a buyer enters into a contract with a seller, that seller retains title and title doesn't get transferred until the closing. And so D is going to be wrong, because just because you gave me a down payment on my house doesn't mean that you own a part of my house. So let's get rid of D. Let's also get rid of B, because B also says that the buyer had legal title. And we know that that is not true if he just signed a contract. Now, where students get confused on this one is A and C. Did this buyer have equitable title or did the buyer have an equitable interest? Let's think about it. If the buyer just gave some money and he's waiting to go to closing, then he just has an equitable interest in the property. The only time you hear us use that term with the buyer having equitable title is that if he's buying the property from the other person in a land contract and he's already gone to closing. Now we've already closed in the land contract. So during the land contract, the buyer has equitable title, the seller has legal title, and the buyer gets legal title at the end of the land contract when everything is paid in full. But in a regular purchase and sale agreement, when you just give money, you have an equitable interest in the property. 39. An option is an example of A, a unilateral contract, B, a bilateral contract, C, an executed contract, D, a voidable contract. All right, I hit that one a little bit too soon, but it is a unilateral contract. But let's explain why that is. All right, let's explain why that is. Understand that with options, it means that one person doesn't have to do anything. So if I'm the receiver of the option and I'm a buyer, I could buy the property or I could not buy the property. Maybe I'll just go home and sit on my couch and not do anything, right? I don't have to buy it just because I have an option. That's why I have an option to buy it or not buy it. But the seller who gave me the option, they are obligated to sell it to me if I decided to buy it. Does that make sense? So in an option, only one side is obligated, the seller, but the buyer is not obligated at all. And so, what is the definition of unilateral? It's when you have a contract, but only one side of the contract is obligated. So, in this case, an option is a unilateral contract, and always for the feather in your cap, an option is always unilateral. Okay, question number 40. A real estate sales agreement contains language, time is of the essence. Such language in a contract most nearly means. Do you remember a couple of days ago? We had this, but we had it in a scenario, not a definition form. It means the parties must perform within a reasonable time. B, the time limit stipulated in the contract must be faithfully followed. C, any time limits in the contract are merely suggestions. Or D, if the time limits are not met, the parties shall have 7 days to perform. So what do you think? Time is of the essence. You know the definition of this one. It means essentially whatever we put time is of the essence next to, whether it be the closing date or some contingency date or due diligence period, it means that whomever is not ready on that date is in breach of contract. You are essentially the loser. There's no pass go, no collect $200. You don't get to keep going. If you don't make that date, then you are the loser. And so that is pretty simple when we say B, the time limits that we put there, and we put time is of the essence next to it, it must be faithfully followed, otherwise you are in breach. All right, so that is it for contracts test review number 4. Tell me what you thought. Are you learning anything from the KJ method? Is it clarifying things for you? I'd really appreciate it if you like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications on the next one, contracts review number 5. And also invite anybody you know over to the KJ method. I'm really serious about getting to those 1,000 agents before the end of 2025. So we're trying to go fairly slow here to make sure that you understand all of the topics as opposed to just giving you an answer A, B, C, D. I'm trying to explain to you so that you truly understand. All right, so that's it for this time. I will see you next time. Thank you.